Alright people, Max Alden here again. Welcome back to some more Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree DLC. This is highlights from my second play session with the game. My day 2 journey, if you want to call it that. I decided I want to do a lot more side stuff and side dungeons on this session, because I'd kind of mainlined to the first main boss on day 1, because I just really wanted to get to the first boss and see what it was like. So after defeating the Twin Moonblade Knight, Renella, whatever her name is, Relana. There's a lot of names that sound similar in this game, but yeah, after I defeated the first main boss up at the big castle, I decided I would come back to the very first Site of Grace and start exploring a bit from there. Go into any side dungeons or catacombs or anything like that was around. And I ran into this Black Jail Knight, I think his name is. I saw a lot of people were having a hard time with him on social media, getting really angry that this first boss they'd ran into was really destroying them so much. But I came to him after exploring a little bit of the rest of the world, and I'd found some of the tree fragment upgrades that negate damage and help you deal more damage. So he was kind of like a standard sort of boss for me. I wasn't having too much trouble. I couldn't summon Black Knife Tish or anybody like that this time, so it was just me. But Morgoth's Curse Sword, as usual, I just feel really comfortable using it. And it just really helps me take out most enemies in this game, and it's still viable in this DLC so far. And yeah, I didn't have much trouble with that night boss, but I saw a lot of people were stuck on him, but I think people ran into him too early before realizing that you need those tree fragments to level up in the Shadowlands to make sure you're dealing the right amount of damage. Your base game level from the OG game, it does matter a bit, but it's not as important as getting the tree fragments. Otherwise you're going to be pretty weak in this DLC, and I think a lot of people are just trying to run from main boss to main boss and they're getting destroyed. So yeah, you definitely need to explore quite a bit. When I was running around this sort of castle town area, I got invaded by this person. They had some unique dialogue. They gave a little speech before I took them out, so that was pretty interesting. You don't see that often, where the invaders have like a little speech, at least not in Elden Ring. And I came back to this town because I think a lot of people come in here first before going to the Twin Moonblade Knight. I think I'd done this out of order, because I think most people, when I was watching other streams and everything, they come to this town or this little castle, and they do the dancing lion fight first. So I sort of did this out of order, and I don't mind that I did it this way, to be honest, because it was kind of nice having defeated a big main boss and then having this sort of side boss to come back to, and this huge town that honestly feels as big as Lindell, capital from the main game, or as big as like Undead Burg and the lower city in Dark Souls, like the first Dark Souls. It feels huge. I found this key to the sewers. I don't think I even ended up going into that underground sewer area. Even though I've got that key, I'll have to come back here again later. And there's just all these little secrets and places you can jump to, and hidden paths that loop around on each other. And it seems like there's going to be stuff to discover in this DLC for like years. I think it's going to take a long time till everybody finds like every last secret. And this is only one sort of castle area out of like, I don't know how many there is, but there seems like there's a ton of ruins and castles and forts and stuff. And yeah, this place was pretty huge. Of course, there's these big spider scorpion enemies in here. I don't know if scorpions have that many legs in real life, I'm not sure, but I've been calling them spider scorpions. Pretty creepy. FromSoft, they always like to put in giant versions of like common insects and bugs and stuff. in their games. I really hate all the creepy crawlies, especially the giant ants from the base game. Those giant flying, stinging ants. I just hate them so much. They're so ugly, and they just creep me out the way they move and everything. I was so very nearly got knocked off this ledge by this guy, so that's a lesson to watch your corners when you come into a new room, because there's always somebody waiting to push you off somewhere. Um, so yeah, I did a lot of exploring in this town, but I did want to get to the sort of main boss of this area, so I did kind of mainline to them after a while. And I think I definitely missed some stuff for sure. And there's going to be a lot to do in the post game, if there is a post game. I'm not sure if you get to the end of this DLC and the game just forces you to go into New Game Plus after the DLC. I don't think that happens. But yeah, there's a lot left to explore for me anyway, so I'll be definitely coming back here. But yeah, I eventually made it to the Dancing Lion boss. It seems this is the boss most people get to the first time, because it seemed like this was the main path. But I thought the other castle looked more like the main path, so that's why I went over there instead. And this does feel like the first main boss actually, because they have a little cutscene introducing them. Somebody's clearly bringing this dancing lion spirit to life or whatever. I'm not going to watch the whole cutscene because I think people just want to get into the fight. But yeah, they've got a cool little introduction here. And they kind of remind me of like a Bloodborne boss, how they're like a big giant beast. And the way they move and everything, it's kind of unusual for Elden Ring. Fighting giant beasts. A lot of the Elden Ring main bosses, they're like, your typical knights and stuff like that. Or you're just one-on-one with like a really strong guy. Or sword wielder or whatever. And this was kind of more like Bloodborne, where you're fighting like a really fast beast that jumps around all over the place and has all these crazy magic attacks and stuff. I summoned Black Knife Tish to help me out. They're kind of weak still because I haven't found as many of the Ash summon upgrades as I have tree fragments. So Black Knife Tish, their health's going down pretty quickly. But they are helping me out. And Morgoth's Curse Sword, again, causing bleed, build up damage. It really does help me out in most of these fights. So the Dancing Lion moved into their second phase, where they started doing the lightning attacks, but we staggered them. I think Black Knife Tish might have got in that hit that staggered them, so kind of knocked them out of their lightning attacks. Then I had to dodge quite a lot of stuff here. Somehow managed to get through that, and then I just started wheeling on them again with Morgoth's sword, trying to dodge all this lightning. And Black Knife Tish kept inflicting the life drain attack or whatever, and slowly taking down his health for me as well. So it doesn't seem like a lot, but it does help when the Tish is, slowly taking down their health. They've got all these storm abilities as well, these wind attacks. So I didn't want to see too much of what they had to throw at me. And I was feeling pretty good that this was a first attempt and that we almost got them down. They have this frostbite attack as well, of course. So they can do lightning, ice storm, wind attacks. I'm pretty sure there's probably some fire attack they could whip out next. But yeah, I put them down before that. And I was pretty pleased about this first attempt. But again, I had Black Knife Tish with me, and I had found quite a few of the tree fragments at this point. So I can understand other people being a bit stuck at the Dancing Lion when I had an easier time at it, because I went to fight the moon, the twin moon knight user or whatever first. So it's not surprising that this area would be a bit easier when I came back here. So after their boss arena, you could follow this big giant staircase upstairs. Really nice view of the tree, the big, I think it's called a scooter. So, I can't even pronounce the name of what the tree is, so I'm just gonna abandon that idea. But I just call it the Shadowland tree. So we got up to the top of this set of stairs, and there's a note here saying that we need something to burn our way through this, and that we probably have to come back here later, and that we should, turn around and go to another area. Then I came back to this cross to speak to the NPC down here, see if they had any new dialogue. And I think they told us that they had previously been a soldier of Radan or whatever, and that they really wanted to figure out what Radan would have wanted them to come here for or whatever. And we were just making sure that they're not going to betray us or whatever. So we might end up fighting that NPC later because that seemed like an unusual thing to put in there. Uh, Next, I fought this dragon out in the open world. Didn't leave in too much of that fight because it was just a pretty standard dragon fight. But I did get a somber dragon smithing stone from that, so that was pretty cool. Uh, Came back to this like very first sort of little set of ruins that you can run into from the first site of Grace. Did a lot of torrent parkour. It's quite funny how much his double jump gets used in this DLC, and he can really go inside buildings and stuff this time. Where in the main game, it seemed quite often when you got to a set of ruins or whatever, they disabled torrent. But here, it feels like they really want you to use him to travel over rooftops and to find secret items in hidden areas or whatever. So in here, there was I think it was a talisman I got. And I summoned Black Knife Tish for this area, even though it wasn't really that necessary. But yeah, it's just cool how many hidden things there are in the game already. And yeah, this was just some more exploration, trying to find some hidden items or whatever. Then I found this cave, this what I call the frozen jar cave, where all these warrior jars are in here. And it's like a prison, it seems like. And it seems like there's prisoners who are getting punished by being put into the living jars. And then there's this really cool platforming section here where you keep jumping down on the next jar. And then, of course, the last jar I jumped on, I thought it was another disabled one, but then it turns out to be an actual enemy. And then I got ambushed by him. That's one of the more memorable moments of the DLC, is like, oh, he's alive! Then you just have to fight him, basically. And yeah, there's living jars all over this cave. It's got quite a creepy, tense sort of atmosphere, this cave. And a lot of the living jars, they haven't been fully closed into their jar yet, so some of them crawl out of the jar. And they're just really creepy, and they look like Resident Evil enemies or something. So in this area, this like floor opens up here, and you fall through it. I think I died down here, so I had to reset that part of the level. But yeah, you get trapped down here, and it's sort of like a little maze with all these different jars and different paths through here. There's a lot of hidden items and stuff, and you can get ambushed by the living jars, the ones that aren't fully closed in yet. They can crawl out of different areas, and yeah, pretty creepy stuff going on in here. Um, but yeah, I died over here, I guess. Oh, and there's one of the big Resident Evil. They just feel like Resident Evil enemies to me for some reason. I think these are new enemy. You don't find them anywhere in the base game. Uh, this is what the inside of a living jar looks like. So I guess this is what Alexander looks like inside the giant pot, and it's kind of gonna give me a different perspective on him as a character to know that he's like so like creepy looking inside there. I noticed that jar over the ledge looked like it was jump. You could jump onto it, so I did expect to find some hidden loot, and then it turned into an elevator, and I was like, "Oh, okay, this is interesting." And I just love these little FromSoft touches to their level design. They just put random stuff in places you wouldn't think to look. And if you can jump on it, it's usually a good idea to jump to it because there will be something hidden in like a secret area that you can jump to or whatever. So I followed this path around, ran into another living jar over here, took him out, and this turned out to lead to this altar that the pathway had broken to, and then you get this great jar helm. There's a standard smaller jar helm that you can get. I think a lot of people know it because Let Me Solo Her, the summonable player who like helps people fight Millennia, he wears this, or like the smaller version of it. So I decided actually that this had better stats than Lionel's helm, and I was like, yeah, you know what? It's gonna look ridiculous, but I'm gonna equip the Great Jar because it's like more defensible or has more defense or whatever, and it kind of suits Lionel's big fat armor as well. To be honest, if I do find a stronger armor than his, I will swap it out. Like I do want to use new stuff from the DLC, but until I find a weapon that feels better than Morgoth's Curse Sword and armor that has less or has more defense than Lionel's, I'll just keep using those. But I think my greaves, I've actually swapped them out to the Black Jail Knight's armor that you got from him. His legs and gauntlets, I think they were more defensive than Lionel's, but his main body armor is still the best one I've found, so I'm still using it. The boss at the end of this cave, we sort of made short work of him with the Curse Sword and the Mimic Tear. It was probably unnecessary to summon the Mimic Tear, but yeah, I just completely wiped that guy out. But the real reward for that dungeon was definitely the Great Jarhead. And now I just call my character Jarhead. But like Pyramid Head from Silent Hill. So yeah, I was doing more exploring after that. Feeling pretty confident now that I had the big Jarhead helm. It just gave me a new level of confidence for some reason. So I just ran into this fight, getting ambushed by all these like flaming pot throwers or whatever. Poor Torrent got taken out, and yeah, I felt like this was a bad idea to stay here. So I don't think I hung about too long because I don't really have much ranged attacks. I have a lightning spear ability, but I think these guys were out of range, to be honest. So I think I got Torrent back, and me and Black Knife Tees just ran out of here because we were just being spammed by flaming fire jars or whatever that was they were throwing. So explore around a bit more. I think I eventually found my way down into this tunnel system, and I found this like what do you call these? The catacombs. I wasn't overly fond of the catacombs in the base game because they all look kind of similar, and they're a bit twisty and maze-like, and it's easy to get lost in them. And they remind me a little bit of the Chalice dungeons from Bloodborne. And I have a lot of bad memories of the Chalice dungeons from Bloodborne. But yeah, these were a bit more elaborate with more traps and a lot more sort of areas to find within them. So this was like one of the first main big catacombs I came into. And yeah, I was a lot more interested in this than what was in the base game because there seemed to be a lot more paths through the catacombs this time, and they seemed to be a lot more in depth, and the bosses were more interesting. Well, at least this first boss that I ran into here. I'm pretty sure this is the boss room. I left a lot of this dungeon unexplored because I was just trying to get to the boss. But again, I'll probably come back here later and just see what else is hidden in here, because these catacombs, they did quite often have pretty decent spirit ashes and stuff like that. So in here was a Dark Knight or whatever. Pretty cool looking boss. I think he has twin axes and he also has like that really cool glowing cloak. It kind of looks like wings, a set of wings. Maybe it is a set of wings, and it just looks like a cloak because of the way the lighting is or whatever. But yeah, he was pretty cool looking, and it was better to fight someone like him than say another shade or one of those big stone cat things that you always found in the base game of Elden Ring that got repeated a bit too much. Had Black Knife Tish here helping me, so it kind of made the fight a bit easier than it might have been. And as usual, Morgoth's Curse Sword causing bleed build up. It really helps me out. And yeah, this guy, he just was pretty cool. And I think we get his axes or maybe his helm after we beat him. I think it drops once we put him down here. He wasn't too much trouble because I found quite a lot of the tree. Yeah, the Dark Knight axe. Oh, and yeah, we got this medallion, this +3 health medallion. That's going to be pretty decent for some bosses. I'll equip that before some boss fights if I'm getting in trouble. So again, explored more of the open world, found some of these giant stone knights where you have to attack their ankles to make them fall over. I quite enjoy fighting these guys because their ankles are so weak, and then you can knock them over and then you just clean out most of their health with a big visceral critical attack. I prefer fighting these guys instead of the big flaming giant things that are in this DLC mainly, that have so much health and are so tanky. I think you're not supposed to fight those until you've found like every tree fragment or something maybe. So again, kept running around the open world, found another dragon. This fight, I think I did a separate video on it because it was the moment that sort of made me like completely love the DLC, because I just ran in and there was like 15 other enemies in here and it was just complete madness. Arrows flying in, people setting stuff on fire, the dragon was destroying tents, there was guys on horseback chasing me. It was just complete madness. But yeah, I have a full separate video that shows the entire fight. But I think I'll just show the opening in this video, just to show off this little how chaotic this fight was. And it's how I always wanted the dragon fights in Skyrim to feel, just complete chaos with stuff being destroyed everywhere, and like 15 or so different enemies running in to fight the dragon. Some of them were fighting me, some were fighting the dragon, and I'd summoned Black Knife Tish by accident, so they were getting in some hits too. But yeah, the dragon took out quite a lot of enemies, and then I just finished off whoever was left standing. They took out Torrent right at the end, and Black Knife Tish for some reason stopped fighting. They just sort of stood over there, and they were like, "Oh, this is the last enemy, you can do the work for this one." So yeah, that was pretty cool. And yeah, that was the moment that made me love the DLC. And behind that dragon, there was this little fort area which I came to, explored around a little, found some different loot. And then I think there's a boss in here. Yeah, another Black Knight. This one has, but it has the like Crucible Knight ability to, you know, summon wings or whatever and fly up into the air. So this was kind of a basic, kind of standard boss. Didn't have too much trouble with them. So it is a decent fight, but I think I was a bit overpowered for it. I was doing a lot of damage to them. I think I found quite a few tree fragments at this point. So again, I was cleaning up these enemies without too much trouble. But again, it's not like a main big boss fight. It was just sort of a standard side boss who's protecting some kind of like basic loot. I think above him in the tower I find a talisman, and I got an Ash of War from the knight, and yeah, you climb this tower after his boss room, and in here I think it's a talisman I got from this. They added, oh, it's a cookbook. But they added so many talismans to this DLC. I think there's like 40 of them or something like that. Uh, so found my way into another cave. This was kind of crazy. There was all these, I don't know what you would call these guys, but they were in this pool of blood, and they all do bleed build up damage. So I just sort of brought them to this area, filtered them into this narrow sort of choke point, and I just wheeled on them from here, trying to fight them one by one, because I knew if I went straight out into the water or the blood lake or whatever out there, I was probably gonna get surrounded and messed up. And these guys, they all have these big tridents like Moog had. So I'm guessing there's something to do with Moog, and because he'd stolen Mikola, stolen his egg or whatever, and was trying to like infest Mikola's world or whatever. Maybe he's responsible for this blood cave or whatever, and these are his followers. I really don't know the lore that well yet of the DLC, so that could be completely wrong. But I think it's interesting that those guys have the big tridents, and they're in a big blood lake. And Moog is the Lord of Blood, like, so you would think he has something to do with this. And you can find ex-Moog followers in this DLC. There's some of the NPCs are Moog ex-followers. I'm interested that they aren't sort of like trying to attack us or whatever because we like took out their lord or whatever. So yeah, I think Moog does have a lot of new lore in this DLC, but I've not looked too much into it yet. So yeah, the boss in here was basically another one of those big blood guys or whatever from the other room, just a bigger version of them. And then you get one of them as an Ash summon as the reward for that place. So yeah, that was pretty interesting. Again, did some more exploring, just riding around the open world. And I made it to the Cerulean Coast. I think that's how you pronounce this place. Really beautiful area, maybe the most beautiful in the DLC so far. Although I didn't go too deep into this area because I think I came here too early. So I just activated the Site of Grace and sort of backtracked from there. But I'll definitely come back to the Cerulean Coast another day and just see what goes on there. Oh, I did run into this first boss over here in the Cerulean Coast. It was another ghost flame dragon or whatever. I fought 3 of them now, so they are a bit repetitive. These dragons, they're dotted around seemingly as the main sort of field bosses. There's probably some bosses that spawn at night as well out in the open world, but so far the open world bosses I've run into have been these big dragons. And when I was just taking tentative steps into the Cerulean Coast, I ran into this one. And I was like, yeah, I better just get him out of the way so that when I come back here, maybe for like a little bit of exploration, he's not going to be a problem. So yeah, I just got him out of the way. Again, there's a lot of torrent parkour in this DLC. So many cliffs that you have to jump down, and so many like tombstones that you can use as like stepping stones. It follows like a really bizarre dreamlike logic. I don't know how to really describe it, but it just feels like stuff I've dreamt about before, where I have to get down a mountain and then there's a really strange but convenient path of stepping stones like this. And I have definitely done like stuff like this in my dreams before, only I don't have a double jumping horse. I'm just sort of climbing down mountains like this, and other bizarre things like that FromSoft just puts into their level design. Just what I've described as like a dreamlike logic to how the world is traversed. But yeah, I was just exploring, opening up more sites of grace. I found this NPC on my travels. He was begging for mercy, not to be attacked anymore or something like that. And I really didn't know what I was supposed to do for him or how to help him or whatever. But he seemed to be in a lot of pain, and he was just laying here on the floor. Um, but he also was calling it the exquisite pain, so maybe he was enjoying himself. So I just left him there, and I eventually came back to the Shadow Keep because I thought it was time to maybe get on with the main game again after defeating that giant hippo. So I moved a bit deeper into the Shadow Keep, and I found this lady again. She was here studying some text. She's trying to discover something. Really not sure how to help her either. But I opened up the rest of the Shadow Keep. There's a lot of platforming in here. It's a bit of a puzzle to figure out how to get up to the next main boss. But I do really love, again, it's this dreamlike traversal logic, as I call it, where you're climbing over giant statues and running up the backs of statues and stuff that you in other games would look like a glitch or like you were breaking out of bounds. But in FromSoft games, it's just how they legitimately want you to travel, and it's just really cool the way they set up their levels. I don't think anybody else at the moment is doing level design this good. It just feels so unique and interesting to get around this world. Um, and they never really make you walk in a straight line or ride in a straight line on torrent to get places. They do something a bit more interesting, and actually sometimes you're like, wait, do I have to jump onto that thing to get over there? And then you try it and it actually works. And yeah, I just love that about FromSoft's games, just the way the world works. So yeah, there was a lot of different platforming and stuff I had to do to get up to this area. Um, and I was finding these things called Embers of Messmer or whatever, so I thought he must be pretty close. He must be the next boss. And I ran into this Fire Knight Sage or whatever. This guy was pretty tough compared to his compatriots or whatever. In the background, the NPC I'd run into, she was still talking to herself. So I think like they definitely want you to find her in there or whatever, because they make it really obvious that she's hanging around here. But it was pretty funny. I could hear her speaking while I was in the middle of this fight with this Fire Knight Sage. Thankfully, Morgoth's Curse Sword is still serving me well, and I cut through this guy. But he was doing quite a bit of damage, and if you let your guard down, he could wipe you out pretty quickly, I think. And yeah, we got his helm and a new Ash of War for taking him down. And behind his door, this is the entrance to the Messmer boss fight. And also you get another tree fragment upgrade in here. Now I was like level 9 or 10 at this point. So I was pretty powered up for this fight. A lot of people are coming here, and I think they only have like 1 or 2 tree fragments. And the boss is just completely demolishing them. But for me, I only died to him like 3 times, and on the 4th attempt, I decided, okay, I'm just gonna bring the Mimic Tier in because I do want to get through the DLC pretty quickly, not completely rush it, but I do want to see everything before I sort of run into it on social media or whatever. And yeah, so I was like, okay, I'll summon the Mimic. We're both gonna have Morgoth's Curse Sword. That'll be causing a lot of bleed up damage, or bleed build up damage. And sometimes he'll go and attack the Mimic Tier, so I have a chance to heal. And his first phase wasn't really a problem. I was consistently beating him. But then this second phase, when he summons the big snake, when I was on my own, it was just completely targeting me the whole time. Just completely wiping me out. But this time he didn't get even a chance to do much of his snake mode. And we'd already carved through him with the blood loss build up. And I was getting plenty of chances to heal because he was turning around to attack the Mimic Tier and stuff. And we just sort of demolished him. I think a lot of people were surprised at how easily I beat him. But yeah, I think the problem is a lot of people are coming here without tree fragments, like enough tree fragments to really survive the fight, and they're really confused. But yeah, I explored so many areas before I came to Messmer and opened up so many parts of the map. I was pretty powerful at this point. Um, and then if you throw in the fact I use the mimic tier, like it really does like make the fight a lot easier when you have the mimic tier there to sort of act as a distraction, if nothing else, so you can get in a heal in between doing some damage. And yeah, Mesmer, he just wasn't too bad for me. I can definitely see if you're fighting him solo and you don't have like as powerful a weapon as Morgoth's Curse Sword, and you're on your own and you're not using Ash summons, and you haven't found, like, you've only found 2 or 3 tree fragment upgrades, then I can absolutely see you being just completely stonewalled by Mesmer, just complete roadblock. A lot of people are quitting the DLC. I've noticed on social media. Some big streamers are like, yeah, this is too hard. And I think they just really haven't realised that the tree fragments are there for a reason. But yeah, anyway, enough about Messmer and the difficulty. Let's move on to this Bonnie Village area and start talking about that a little. I wasn't expecting there to be so many enemies in here, so I quickly summoned Black Knife Tisha after being ambushed. It would have been alright if it was just all those black shade people, but this naked NPC guy with a big butcher knife or whatever ran in, and he started doing some damage to me. But then me and Tish, we took out the rest of these people pretty quickly. Even though they're a basic sort of scrub enemy, if there's enough of them, they can cut through your health pretty quickly. So yeah, don't underestimate these guys. Oh, nice visceral attack. Didn't even mean to do that, but oh well. And yeah, Tisha's just helped me out by distracting some of them until I can get a hit in. I noticed she wasn't disappearing, so it seemed like there was going to be more enemies around there, but eventually I just ran out of the village and then Tish vanished, because I think I moved too far out of the range of the gravestone summoning sign or whatever. And there was another one of these naked big butcher knife guys in here. I don't know what their name actually is because I was too caught up in the fight to actually read what their name was. But yeah, this is again something to do with the living jars, clearly, because there's so many of them all over the place. And maybe these people are responsible for filling the jars. These are the butchers who butcher people to put them in the jar. I don't know, something like that maybe. But yeah, it's quite interesting that the living jars are also in the Shadowlands, and they seem to be a punishment for people who were in that prison that I found earlier. So yeah, it's quite interesting. There's probably some lore that's going to tie the cave and that Bonnie village together later. So I travelled downriver from the village, and then I found again these big giant tombstones sticking out the side of a cliff. Again, more of that dreamlike traversal logic where it just feels too crazy to actually be what you're supposed to do, but then it actually just does work. And yeah, Torrent, he's so helpful here for getting through these sort of traversal, these transitional areas. So the Bonnie village was up there, and I came down to this area because I was just hunting for more tree fragments, to be honest. Because even more than finding main bosses, my objective really in a lot of the game was to, you know, level up the tree fragment ability, or whatever you would call it, the blessing of the shadow tree or whatever it's called. And then I stumbled into this like giant hippo over here. Summoned the mimic tier because I was like, these guys are pretty tough. I fought one of them as a main boss in the Shadow Keep on the way to Messmer, and I was like, okay, I better not take any chances and summon the mimic tier to help me out. But thankfully, I'd found so many tree fragments by now that these guys, they weren't that bad, and the mimic tier definitely helped me out, putting them down a lot quickly. Again, once you have two Margot's Curse swords targeting an enemy, both building up bleed damage, it just does make short work of quite a few enemies. And these giant hippos, they drop another tree fragment for you. So it basically was a free tree fragment for beating that guy. I noticed the Mimic Tier hadn't disappeared after that fight, so that told me that there was still another enemy around here somewhere. So yeah, I put a marker down here because I was just searching for this pond area because I'd seen it on the map and I was like, I wonder what's over there. And then I surely enough found another hippopotamus over here. They knocked me off torrent this time, so this guy, he was a bit more dangerous, clearly. Or maybe it was just torrent was a bit wounded from the last fight, so he got put down. But yeah, the Mimic Tier was still helping me out, and we inflicted blood loss on this guy pretty quickly and got his health down. Yeah, just completely cut through him. And again, that was another free tree fragment upgrade, basically. So it was worth exploring and doing this kind of stuff because you're going to be rewarded for going into unusual areas. And the tree fragments are like the most vital thing you can find in the DLC, I think. Other than like a really amazing set of armor or something like that. So I did another catacomb that I found in that area. I didn't want to show the entire run through it because it took quite a long time. But at the end of it, I fought this boss and I summoned Black Knife Tish again. I was just going between the Mimic Tier and Black Knife Tish in these areas. I don't know why, I just like to swap it around sometimes, I guess. And again, Morgoth's Curse Sword causing the bleed build up was cutting through this person pretty quickly. I didn't have a lot of Estus left after going through the big catacomb dungeon or whatever. So I really just spammed attacks really quickly to get through that boss and just about survived. I was kind of lucky there. And I unlocked the Site of Grace. And then after the catacomb, I found out, yeah, I'm in this really strange new area. It was grayed out on the map still. So I was like, okay, I need to find the map of this area. And it was kind of creepy in here, to be honest. The music changed, and all the sort of random animals and stuff around here have those glowing, this glowing chaos frenzy eyes or whatever, or the frenzy flame infection or whatever you would call it. And I got ambushed by this guy who just came out of nowhere. So he wasn't too bad. I just spammed Morgoth's Curse Sword on him. Didn't let him heal and put him down pretty quickly. He was causing madness build up or whatever you would call it. The frenzy flame build up. So yeah, this place has clearly been infected by that. I found the map fragment on a pillar, and then I found this abandoned church and another Site of Grace. So I was like, okay, I'll just activate this Site of Grace. I'll grab what's over here. I think it was 2 tree fragments, so it was worth coming in here to get those. And then I was like, okay, I'm fast traveling out of here because this place feels a bit too creepy and too late game for me to be there. So I'm gonna go back to the Abyssal Woods later, but yeah, they feel pretty dangerous at the moment. I then came back to the Shadow Keep, did some exploring, and I found this sort of like hidden area. And there was a field boss out here that was a mounted boss, Commander Caius or whatever. I'm actually not sure what his name is. I know it's Commander or something. Some of the Mimic Tier, they were on foot, so they were kind of struggling to get in hits. But they were able to help inflict the blood loss build up onto him. He was doing a lot of gravity magic attacks and stuff. So I just assumed he was maybe a Radan soldier or something like that. And he seems to be riding like a rhino with those 2 big tusks or something like that. And this felt kind of like a Sekiro or Sekiro even boss fight, where you fight that big mounted enemy, the guy on the horse, who was like a big roadblock for people in that game. And it was just cool to have a like mounted battle with Torrent that wasn't against a dragon. Um, and yeah, he's a lot of grappling magic that you have to be careful of. Um, yeah, I think I just about managed to dodge that stuff. I think the end of this fight is actually pretty funny. I think I actually get taken out, but the Mimic tier survives just long enough to put the boss down as well. I think I was just getting a bit cocky and wasn't healing enough or something like that. Or maybe I just got hit by an unlucky shot from one of his gravity attacks. Okay, yeah, he put down Torrent, and this kind of wrong-footed me, and I don't think I could get out of there quickly enough. So maybe this is the wrong boss, and that I was pretty sure there's a boss where I get like taken out, and then the Mimic tier finishes the fight for me. He's so close to being put down. There's where he took out Torrent, and then I couldn't recover. I just couldn't recover in time. He was just on me too much. I couldn't get Torrent back. And then the Mimic tier just gets in the last hit for me. And thankfully, before the loading screen kicks in, the Legend Failed message comes up. So that was pretty funny. The Mimic tier defeated the boss and got revenge for me after I was put down. So yeah, this was a pretty cool like secret hidden area with a new boss fight. And if you ride around this area for a while, you can get right up next to the big Shadowland tree or whatever. And there's this like offering, this chalice, and there's all these different tree fragments over here. I think there's like 5 of them. So it's definitely worth coming to this area, getting all these tree fragments, because I could level it up like 3 times or something, I think. And yeah, I was really glad I found that. But after that, I thought it was time to like leave the Shadow Keep, say goodbye to Messmer's house or whatever as I will call it, and head on to the next, what seemed like the next main area. Again, there was another one of these fire sages or whatever. He was over here casting flame rain or whatever you would call it, and he was annoying me, so I just ran in, wanted to wheel on him pretty quickly, just do a lot of heavy R2 attacks, stagger him, create blood loss, use the special move, just don't let him attack me at all, and they would put him down pretty quickly. And he has a hood, so he has some lore about this guy. I think he's some sort of commander of the Flame Sages or something like that. But yeah, he was basically guarding the entrance to the next sort of area. There's a big ruin you have to go through. Sort of skip through the ruin because nothing too like interesting happened in there. And then there's this like tree sentinel, or crucible knight even, not tree sentinel, with a big giant hammer. And he's a pretty tough. He could have been a boss, to be honest, but they gave him just, a standard health bar. He has all these different moves, like turning into like a centaur or whatever here, jumping all over the place. And I actually lost to him 2 or 3 times before I defeated him. He is pretty tough. But yeah, again, Morgoth's Curse Sword causing the bleed build up. Oh yeah, I actually did. I lost to him as well when I defeated him. That's hilarious. But yeah, I did get him down and get his stuff there. And then I moved on past him. Well, actually, this is where I got to the site of grace after that guy, and then I backtracked to these town ruins or whatever. These were down in a big ravine sort of area, because I'd realised that I'd missed some items down here, so I actually backtracked to this area. And this guy, I left this fight in here because this guy was tougher than some bosses, and he was actually doing a lot of damage to me or whatever. I don't know what those guys are called exactly, but yeah, there's a few of them that I've run into, and they're pretty tough. Uh, but yeah, I came back to this place because I wanted this talisman. I think, and yeah, the two handed talisman, that's going to be pretty useful for me because I always two-hand Morgoth's cursed sword. Then I went back to the ruins that I was going through, and I made it to the Saint of the Bud boss, Romina or whatever her name is. Again, didn't have too much trouble with her, but again, I used the Mimic here and I summoned like this dry leaf NPC guy who was out there to be summoned. Hadn't really been able to summon any NPCs for other fights, so I was like, yeah, I'll bring him in just to see what he's like. Um, so we absolutely demolished her in the first phase, got her health down so quickly. Morgoth's Curse Sword is just... I know a lot of people don't really think about it too much or care for this sword, I don't think, but I just love it so much. But in the second phase, she inflicted Scarlet Rot on me, and I couldn't just keep using the Blood Curse slash spam because I needed the remaining FP to use Flame Cleanse Me to get rid of the Scarlet Rot. So yeah, she was a bit trickier in the second phase. We didn't melt her health bar completely. But yeah, this was a pretty decent fight. I did do it on the first attempt, but again, I found so many tree fragments by now, and I've got the NPC summon and my Mimic Tears here, and we've got some really good talismans, and Morgoth's Curse Sword just continuing to build up bleed damage helped us put her down pretty quickly. And yeah, this was the last thing I did on my day 2 of Shadow of the Erdtree. And yeah, I'm just loving this DLC, to be honest, and I can't wait to come back for day 3. So thanks for watching, people, and I'll see you again next time with another Elden Ring video.